Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. Now we're doing part 4 and the final video on this deceased estate cleanup here in this retirement village. I'll give you a quick walkthrough about where I got up to in part 3. The carport's just really full of the last bits and pieces, box lots of household stuff, some prints, nothing really much of value. I managed to get rid of quite a bit of stuff just yesterday, some old shelving, that exercise or rowing machine type thing's been picked up today. Just put 20 bucks on that on Facebook. It's just a matter of getting rid of the big awkward stuff that I don't want in my shop, and if I can get 10 or 20 bucks here or there, great. This table is a free one, extension table. I have a couple of people interested in that. Hopefully someone comes and gets it. The desk I put on Facebook, and also the 40s or 50s era sideboard. They're both on Facebook at 50 bucks each. Hopefully I'll get a taker, but if not, I'll put them in the shop, and I'll probably put 100 each on them in the shop. But I don't really want to carry them back, it's effort. I've got to find room for them. So if I can sell them cheap and quick at 50, I'd be very happy. I still have to get into this shed, which I just started in the last part. Hopefully there's some value in here for me. I do like the workbench. If you haven't seen the series of videos, the workbench is one of the things that actually convinced me to take the deal, and the pigeonholes. But there's not really much other value in this shed as far as tools or anything go, but who knows what we're going to find. Now in the last video I did actually find some pretty good stuff under the house, and I've dragged all that out, and the only other thing I have to get, a couple of bits of furniture inside. Now we haven't been inside yet, but this big large chest of drawers has to go. Fairly modern, probably 1980s, maybe 90s. Quite solid, and drawers sell okay because they're practical. They've still got a good use. They're quite heavy by the looks of them. There's also this big dressing table. I hope the mirror comes off. I think it should. It's got a glass top on it, and it's quite chunky. Look, it's probably more likely to sell without the mirror. It would sell as a low-line TV stand or something like that. There's good storage in the drawers, but I think I might actually put a photo of that on Facebook today, and even something like 50 bucks, which is super cheap. If you go to buy something new like this, admittedly it wouldn't be this style, but you would pay a lot more. It appears to be real timber too. I don't think it's, yeah, look at that, the drawers are even dovetailed, so it's a fairly good quality piece. It's not MDF, it's real timber. So for the effort of moving it, I'm going to throw it on Facebook straight away. I've just got here, it's just after 9 AM. Hopefully someone today will come and pick it up while I'm cleaning up, and then it gets it out of my hair. Whereas the drawers I think are worth taking back to the shop, and good, solid, sturdy chest of drawers. I reckon I'd get $100 for that. Now, the only other thing in the house, and we'll just wander down the hallway, they said I had to take the fridge. Everything else in the house has been cleaned out. And I don't know what the fridge is like. I'd imagine it's an older one. But we'll just come through here. It's actually quite a spacious unit, this one. In this little retirement village. It's quite a popular area to live, and I think they'd have no trouble selling this house. Come in. Oops, there goes the door, slammed in the wind. Okay, it's an older fridge, looks quite big and heavy, but it's in the kitchen. It's obviously in working order, and I reckon it should be a pretty quick seller. Again, I'll put that on Facebook today. Hopefully someone can come and pick it up. Make a great beer fridge. Looks quite neat. Decent sized freezer at the top too. So yeah, alright, I better hop to it. I'll take some photos of these things, get them on Facebook, and hopefully someone can come and help me clean this place out, and I'll load up the van with the rest of the stuff and finish the day's job. At the end of this video we'll do a tally on what value I've got out of this. If you haven't seen this series, this deal was a no money change hands situation. I'm basically cleaning it up, salvaging what I can, and hopefully make enough out of it. but the deal is I have to take the rubbish and leave it clean because they're going to sell the property. Alright, I'll get to work. Alright, the good news is that it only took an hour for someone to take the bait on this dressing table. So someone's coming to pick that up today for $50, which is great. I don't need to load it in my van. The chest of drawers is in the van. I'm happy to take that back. And after having a better look at that too, it's very solid, very well made, and I'll probably put 150 on those drawers. So I've started in the shed. Not a lot to go in here. I've emptied most of the drawers. They will just be knocked apart for firewood because they're all rotten at the bottom, and it's only a chipboard type material anyway. The unit in the corner there is actually quite solid, and I think I've got a spot in my shed that'll be handy. If I decide I don't need it, it'll be, you know, have no trouble getting rid of that. It's a good sturdy unit for someone's shed. This corner one is only a plywood thing. It's been wet on the bottom too. Probably end up in the firewood pile as well. If I might try and give it away. The bonus here was the shelves were actually old signs. Now they've been folded on one side to fit, but they're only aluminium. They should straighten out okay. Not fantastic signs. It would have been really nice to see some enamel signs advertising oil products. These are just screen printed, but that would have been the State Rivers and Water Supply Commission, which dates it. Oh, geez, that'd have to be going back 30, 40 years, I'd reckon. So these are just warning signs, penalty $100 for polluting. That one, camping prohibited, is a bit rough. So RWC would probably be rural water supply, and this other one is actually just a sticker on a piece of tin, so not much value in there unless there's a sign underneath. It looks like it was actually a sign. It's probably been painted over. Anyway, there's a bit of dollars there. I mean, if they straighten out okay, I'd be thinking 25 each. You know, maybe 30 if they clean up well. So, you know, for what was just shelf liners on this little cupboard, there's $100 value for me. So, as far as everything else goes, there wasn't anything really interesting at all. There was no tools. I'd say the family must have got all the tools out. Most of the tubs just had old rusty screws and nuts and bolts in them. But I still really do like this workbench, and we'll get that out and take it to the car wash and give it a clean up. See how that comes up. Alright, so I've really just got to pack up the rest of this clutter. I've been loading the van. I'll swing back by here with my ute and trailer, throw the last of this on, and then before we finish this video we will have a better look at these pigeonholes and workbench, because I think that's my best value out of this deal. Just looking at this Sanyo turntable and radio. It's been out in the shed here for a long time. Oh, it's a cassette as well, so it's a 3-in-1. There's a pretty good chance it won't be any good, but you know, it might be worth a try. Usually the rubber belts all perish, and it's just not worth the effort to fix them up, but it's quite a stylish looking one. The biggest problem though is the speakers, and this is why really when you consign things to the shed, you're pretty well signing their death warrant, especially when they're like these speakers and they're made out of chipboard. The vinyl veneer is just, in the heat of the shed, is just peeled off, and the chipboard, this stuff soaks up moisture like a sponge, or it just draws it out of the air and it swells up, and you can see all the screws have gone rusty there, and the chipboard itself has really just fallen apart. So those speakers are totally stuffed. I might knock them apart just to see what the actual speakers themselves are like. I do often save vintage speakers because there's always guys starting to, you know, they're starting to restore appliances from the 70s, hi-fi gear especially, and you know, Sanyo wasn't a cheap brand, so the speakers there might well be worth saving, but the cabinets themselves, as you can see, are stuffed. So if you want to look after these sort of things, don't put them in the shed. This is actually just a garden shed, so it was always going to get moisture in. Clearly it's a haven for spiders, but unless it's real timber like these good old pigeonholes and workbench, they're not going to survive in a shed. So if you want to look after 70s stuff, keep it in the house. So I'm making some headway in this shed. I've got the pigeonholes off, I've got all the old shelves out of this section. All I did was knock them apart. They're only chipboard and they'd been wet on the bottom, so they're no good to me at all. But the timber workbench, as I keep talking about, is a great piece. It looks like the ends of it have been made out of, it's upside down, but it's Vacuum Oil Company, I think. So they're old oil boxes. It looks pretty sturdy. I'm going to take that big sheet of tin off the top, and hopefully the boards are in good nick underneath. You know, we don't need them pristine, but it's nice to have them solid, not rotted, not too split. Little notches and things are perfectly fine. That's part of its history. And I've just dragged it out from the wall. I've found lots of spiders in this shed. There's all sorts. There's the redbacks and your huntsman type and your big black house spiders. And I just saw a big long white tail. So there's a bit of a cross section of spider breeds in here. But just down that end is a little army box. I haven't got to it yet, but there might be something good in that. So let's dig it out and have a look. If nothing else, it's a nice little army box. They generally sell for around about $20 or so. So I'll lift it up to the top of the bench. Hopefully nothing jumps out and grabs me. It doesn't feel very heavy, so there might not be anything in it. And it's not locked or anything. It looks like it's empty, but it actually is in good nick. Pretty happy to score that. Not rusted on the bottom, just needs a bit of a wash up. So there we go. We'll put probably $25 on that in the shop. That's fine. Every $25 piece adds up. Alright, the ute and trailer are loaded with the final load from this place. And if we just pan around, there's the carport. Just finished sweeping it out. Everything removed, left nice and neat. And doing a good job like this gets me so much work. We certainly don't just pick the eyes out. We do a total clean up, deal with everything. This room looks a lot brighter now with nothing in it, and it echoes quite a lot. So all swept out, nice and neat. And the back area I've swept down as well. And this dark and dingy spider-ridden shed is now spotless. I always sweep the walls down as well. Leave it as if I'd like my place if it was going to be sold. I always leave cans of paint here that match the house. The guy, I think, still has to do a couple little paint jobs on the decking, so I've left his stuff there. And I did find in one of the shelves, I found an old expander file with quite a lot of personal papers, and there's some letters and stuff in there, so I'll give that back to the family. It's no value to me, and I'm sure they might want some stuff out of there. If not, they can decide how to dispose of it. And there was just a few bits for the blinds inside the house in that box. So we leave whatever is relevant to the house, but we get rid of all the rubbish. We leave it nice and neat, swept out, and another job ticked off. My work isn't over yet, of course. I've got to unpack, I've got to go through and price things, repairing, working out what's of value and what isn't, and disposing of the rest, environmentally friendly wise. So alright, I better tie the load down and get back to my shop. So back to this workbench and pigeonholes. They've actually come home to my place. I've decided that I'm not going to sell them as they are. I'd like to restore them a bit, and I might even find a use for them in my shed. I did take the workbench to the car wash and pressure washed it, and you can see the advertising on the sides there from the oil boxes. Actually, that's the other end. They were more prevalent on the other end, but also they used the oil box sides as shelving. So there you can see the advertising there. It looks like this has actually been in a fire at some stage. not totally sure. And underneath the tin, I don't think the boards are in very good condition, because I don't know if we can see now. I'll try and have a look, but when I was washing it I did notice that there was some big gaps, and it possibly might be charred. If the thing has been in a fire, then the top may have been more damaged, which is possibly why they put the sheet of steel over it. Anyway, I reckon it's a good solid base, beautifully made. Look at the way that that has been let in there with nice old bolts, and I reckon it's well worth taking the tin off, and if the boards aren't very good, I'll put some new boards on top, and it may make a nice feature in our barbecue area, or it might make a good workbench in my shed. As it is, I would ask a couple $100 for it, $200, but I think done up with a nice top you could easily get $300 or $400 for it. The pigeonholes, these ones are much better than the other ones. They've come from different places, and I gave this a wash up, and this is actually cedar. It's a nice early piece. I'd suggest it's late Victorian, maybe early 1900s, and it's in pretty good condition other than a bit rough on the corners, and one end was a bit split. And the panels aren't ply, they're actually cedar pieces, and that one's a little bit warped, but probably just from being wet. I'm going to knock this apart carefully, clean it all up and put it back together, and I think that'll have a spot in my shed. Nice early cedar pigeonholes, so pretty happy with that. Now if I was to sell that as it is, I would probably ask about $80 as a project, but all cleaned up and fixed, I reckon it'd be worth a couple $100. But as I said, I'll probably keep that one. The other one wasn't as good, and it's a different era. I think this one's a pine. Looking at the grain there, it's probably a red pine. It doesn't have all the nice mouldings on it, and it's got a more modern piece of plywood on the back. But it's the same colour. I think they've been Japan blacked, which is a lacquer finish, and they'll go well together, and they'll have a use in my shop. To sell that one, I would probably just put $30 or $40 on it as it is, but yeah, I'll clean it up and use it with those other ones. Down the track, when I get it all done, I'll put some photos on my Ultimate Recycler Facebook page. It might take a while. They'll end up as a project in my shed, and it will take me a while to get to. But yeah, pretty happy to score those. Amazing to find such old pieces in a modern shed in a retirement village. You just never know what you're going to find. And now the final wash up for this deal. I've got a stock list here. I'm not going to go through all the pieces individually, but I've sold a large quantity of this stuff. What I do here is I've got my details, buyer details at the top. I itemize everything, usually better than $5, sometimes down to $3. I do put a lot of stuff in $1 boxes, and also I do give a lot of stuff away. But this column down this side, just as I'm writing out prices, I just jot down what I'm pricing things at. Just gives me a guide as to what the deal is going to add up to. And this side, of course, when I sell it, I write the price down here, and eventually it gives me a total of what the deal really did add up to. So there's quite a few pages here. As I said, I'm not going to go through each item. There was lots of bulk, as I've explained right through this video. There wasn't really any wow items, nothing super outstanding. The dressing table, I've got 54, that was the one inside the house. That Bendigo or early stoneware crock we got 45 for. I did find a lid that suited it okay, but wasn't brilliant. So there you go, there's a full list of items there, and there's still lots to sell, but this was the last page. I actually did get 150 for the drawers, no problems. I got 50 for the desk, and there's still a bit of stuff to sell. So the wash up for the deal, let's have a look at this notepad. I've sold $1,337 worth of stuff. Now this is in pretty much a couple of months. For those wondering, my code is actually a date code. As part of the second-hand dealer's license, I need to assign everything a serial number, and the date code I use, 09 was the 9th of the month, A was January, and Q is the year I'm up to since I started. I think I'm into my 17th year, 16th or 17th, so go through the alphabet and work that one out. But so there we go. I've sold that 1337. Unsold, I just added up from that other notepad, worked out about 900. So even if I discount to clear it all out, 600 is a conservative figure. Keep, well, that was mainly the beautiful old workbench I kept going on about, and the pigeonholes. You know, if I threw that on Facebook for 200 bucks, it'd be snapped up straight away. So that's a fire sale figure. There is still a few boxes I've got to go through, but it's really just clutter, nothing outstanding. My expenses, other than my time, was it did cost me $50 to take the mattress and the base to the transfer station, but everything else I've got rid of, other than what I still have to sell, which is in my shop. And that just goes to show that deals like this, there's were in excess of $2,000, when if you go back to the first video in this series and scan through, most people would say what a lot of junk. And I think the family were prepared to get a skip in, other than sell, you know, the washing machine or a couple of bits. The rest of it would have been thrown out. So there you go, a bit over $2,000. Took me, I don't know, a few days, and it took me a while to process it and price it and fix things and everything, but that's what I do. This is my full-time job. But it just goes to show there's some good money in stuff that other people consider rubbish. I've stopped just about everything going to landfill, other than a few things in my rubbish bin each week, and that's how I make a living. And hopefully I've given you a few ideas. If you have to clean out a house, it's not necessarily junk, even if you don't see value in it. Usually some people do. Thanks for watching. I better get on to my next video. We'll see you then.